Hello and welcome back to yet another episode of How To Homebrew. My name is Kieran, the DM for the Dirty 20s, and I have been dungeon mastering D&D 5th edition for the better part of 3 years now. And since the start, I've always loved the freedom the game offered in terms of creativity and customization. And, in my mind, a close contender for my favorite part of that creativity is creating new variations for the classes that Wizards of the Coast offers us. So join me today as I walk you through my process of creating a homebrew subclass by building one with you and providing many examples for smaller ideas as we go. So first, as always, the golden rule is to try not to balance as you go. Just do it at the end, once all your ideas are down on paper and you've started to get an idea for some numbers that you like, just see if they make sense. But for now, we just need to start. We need to pick a class that we want to make a subclass for. There are a lot of great options for classes that need new variety put in them, but I'm going to go with Sorcerer because I have a really cool idea to make a Sorcerer that's specifically designed for combat. Their whole thing is using metamagic to hit fast and hard. I've been thinking about this for a while now. There's not really one that strays away from the idea of elemental lineages or divine gifts. I would like a sorcerer that's focused more purely on pure weave energy flowing through them. Something that they have to spend years learning how to focus and direct for themselves. So, spell sniper sorcerers, as I've deigned them, are going to be a combat-focused nuker. Based on that, we have to consider what we're going to be giving them, and based on what makes sorcerers unique already. When making a subclass, it's important to enhance the characters who take it in accordance with what the class already offers. No one wants a rogue subclass for heavy weapons because none of their abilities work with them. And the other important thing is to not make a worse version of another class. I'm looking at you, Scout Rogue, you Ranger wannabe. Man, I got a thing for rogues. So, sorcerers don't get any armor or weapon proficiencies. Let's change that slightly. We don't want to make them too strong, give them, crazy stuff. We're going to give them light armor and simple weapons, just sort of pad out what they can already do. This way that they can get a little bit more down and dirty with the rest of them. And then for enhancing their spellcasting at level 1, let's give them an ability that lets them have a very slight chance to hit enemies around corners, and an extra cantrip to go along with it, much like the actual spell sniper feat. This subclass is named the same as that feat, but what's important is that you don't double up on abilities. A character should be able to choose to not take something just as much as they should be able to choose to take it. So if someone really doesn't want or see the need for that feat, why would you give it to them? Give them something that works with it, but does not supersede the need for it. So instead of giving them the same ignoring 1/2 and 3/4 cover and the double range and all that stuff, let's just focus on enhancing the other aspects of a sniper, the damage of single shots, and the creativity one should have being a master of the weave. So what this class may lack in unique ideas, it makes up for in the same way that Battlemaster Fighter makes up for being placed in a sort of samey class. It gives you more options. I want this class to get more metamagic choices, not just in the fact that I want them to be able to take more metamagics in general, but also I want to make some new metamagics to go with the subclass. Not specifically for it, but to be used for all sorcerers and introduced with this one. But also, the subclass can take more of them because there needs to be some variety, some unique reason to take this. Sorcerers normally only get 4, and I want perhaps at the end for this subclass to get maybe 8. Yeah, you're only getting 20 sorcerer points to use them with, but think of the amount of variety that you could have, whereas normally you would only be able to do certain things. Now you can do more. And now as we get to the point in the script where I wrote just improv and edit later, lol. Great. So next we should look sort of at other sorcerer subclasses for perhaps where we want to go. Sorcerers get abilities at 1st, 6th, 14th, and 18th levels, but also I want this subclass to get more metamagic options, which means that we need to sort of tone down all of our other things. We'll figure out exactly where we're putting those extra metamagic features later, but let's look at building out perhaps some other ideas. So we want a combat-focused sorcerer. So perhaps at 6th level we could look at giving them maybe, because they still have only a d6 hit dice and their armor class is limited by the fact that they can only use light armor, we should give them something actually good inspired from rogues. I don't hate rogues. I've played many rogues. I don't know why I keep saying I hate rogues. Perhaps after they, so that it's limited a little, after they cast a spell of 1st level or higher, they can dash, disengage, or hide as a bonus action. That way they don't always have to be quickening spells to do that, and that they can become hidden easier. And now this might be too much, also inspired from rogues at this ability. If you're hidden from a creature when you cast a spell on it, the creature has disadvantage in the saving throw. I really like that ability and I wish it was used more. I wish it was perhaps in a feat or something. And from last episode, maybe you could come up with a feat for that. But I'm going to put it tentatively in the 6th level slot here, and we'll see where that goes for later. So, yeah. Next at 14th level, it is a humongous jump. It should be, you have to go hard into Sorcerer to get the next 2 abilities, and as such, they should be pretty good, because Sorcerer tends to level off after a certain point. Similar classes at this level are getting the ability to hurl creatures through hell, or, I don't know, attack 3 times in a turn. That's pretty close to around, that's what, 11th level? I don't know. So let's say that you can pick a spell that you know, or maybe you'll get 1 extra spell known just specifically for this ability that you can switch out. And supposing it requires an attack roll to hit, you can increase the range of that 1 specific spell to as far as you can see. And that if, you fire it, any creature making a check to determine where it was fired from would be made at disadvantage. That way you can actually snipe from a long distance and people have no idea where you're coming from. And maybe there's something else we can do with this as well. Maybe you can also choose a line spell. And going back to those additional metamagic options we had earlier, maybe there's a metamagic option to turn a line spell into an attack roll spell. And that's something that we should look at. Right here we're going to put a little pin and we're going to say a metamagic to condense a spell from a line to a single target. And then maybe another one to go from a line to a big area, like lightning bolt into a fireball. These are interesting ideas. Maybe we should even have a third one to go from fireball to a line to a single target, and then back up and back down. And so that way, any spell can become any other kind of spell. That would drastically increase the variety that this class could use well. Obviously, these would all cost sorcery points, and those would go fast for this class. And as such, the metamagic adapt feat, on top of the spell sniper feat, would be invaluable to this subclass. Now, taking that pin out and going back, we still have an 18th level ability to determine. So, abilities at 18th level can get kind of insane. Druids, they can automatically speak with all animals. They can basically stop aging. I know that at this point, clerics are almost to the point where they can just talk to their god and ask for favors nearly at will. Bards know a dozen extra spells from other classes. Shit gets insane. So here we need to drop our sorcerer nuke, which is what we said we were going to do at the start of this. So at 18th level, maybe when you have advantage on an attack roll for a sorcerer spell or cantrip, and that would also imply for your long-range attack that we outlined at 14th level. So if a creature is not aware of you, you have advantage to hit on a spell, which means that if you're 3 miles away from a tower and you're shooting someone on the ground at the edge of a city, you'll have advantage. If you hit on that attack, you can spend some sorcery points to deal an insane amount of extra damage, and in a flurry of deadly accuracy, annihilate a target in one shot. And obviously, this is not going to be entirely restricted to that, and as such could be used in combat. So we don't want to go too hard, because if you play with the optional flanking rule to give advantage, then things could get insane. If you just flank a target, shoot them, and you could just blow their head up, that would be too much. So maybe it's either going to be a single number or a variable number you can deal an extra amount of damage, and that's something that we'll come back to when we get to the balancing section. But for now, we've outlined our abilities. Proficiency, curving shots, extra metamagic, rogue stuff to get away from combat and have disadvantage on saving throws, our long-range attack, and then our deadly accuracy, on top of our 3 additional metamagic options. Now comes the balancing and the formatting. So, spell snipers. Your innate magic comes from a focused inner power source. After years of keeping it bottled up, it finally explodes out of you in the form of channeled magic. You gain access to more specialized metamagic and superior ways of channeling your power to harm your enemies or save your allies. You are a combat specialist. At first level, you gain proficiency in light, armor, and all simple weapons as well. You also learn an additional cantrip from any class of spellist that requires an attack roll to hit, counts as a sorcerer cantrip for you, but does not account against your number of known cantrips. You can cast it without using verbal or material components if it has them, meaning that all you have to do is hold up your hand, and it's yours. Then, the last thing you get at first level is curved shots. When you cast a cantrip or spell that requires an attack roll to hit, you can curve your magic around corners and barriers. You can make attack rolls against creatures behind total cover if you're aware of them, although the attack rolls are made at disadvantage. So now, why I've made these decisions. The light armor and simple weapons will not break your game. They will just give your sorcerers more choices and raise their AC by less than mage armor would. So give some, you take some. Just means they don't have to take mage armor if they want a little bit of a bump. For the second ability, I've called Innate Force. Just gives them an extra cantrip. It's useful. It lets them get to Eldritch Blast or any other homebrew attack roll thing that they would want, but they should just take Eldritch Blast, Firebolt, or Ray of Frost. And then lastly, curved shots. Normally, 3/4 cover is a +5 to AC and Dex saves, so making attack rolls at disadvantage against creatures behind total cover is probably balanced. I would obviously allow this, I've written it, but speak to their DM about that. Perhaps they're a little bit iffy, but seeing as how you have to be aware of a creature, they have to be behind cover, but you have to be aware of where they are, and they still have to be within range, which means that your shot, if it would normally track 60 feet, it has to be able to reach with that curve 60 feet. I think these first level abilities are just fine. Now, at third level, I have done exactly what I said. I've changed the normal 4 metamagic choices up to 8. So at 3rd level, when you gain your first 2, you actually get 3. And then you get additional choices at 6th, 14th, and 20th. And this is not made clear in the books, but I have made it a special note here. Whenever you gain a level in any class, you can switch out one of your metamagic options for another. Which means if you find that you are no longer using, say, Empowered spell, you don't need it anymore. You can drop it and pick up Twinned, which is way better. Now, at 6th level, Hit and Run. Starting at 6th level, on your turn after you cast a sorcerer spell of 1st level or higher, that limits you to only being able to use ones from this class and therefore subclass. You can dash, disengage, or hide as a bonus action. Taken from rogues, but more limited because you're a sorcerer, not a rogue. It also means that you don't need to take 2 levels in rogue if this is an ability that you were looking for. A secondary ability at this level is if you are hidden from a creature and cast a spell on it, the creature has disadvantage on the saving throw it makes against the spell this turn. Again, stolen from Rogue, Arcane Trickster, it's incredibly useful, and in a class that's focused mostly on attack rolls, this ability will let you not feel useless when it comes to taking spells that are saving throws, if you don't want to take the additional metamagic options for whatever reason. Then, at 14th level, Long Range Attacker. You can learn an additional spell of 5th level or lower from the Sorcerer spell list, supposing that it requires an attack roll to hit a creature or is an area of effect that is a line that deals damage. So, your Chromatic Orbs, your Chaos Bolt, it's a good one, your Lightning Bolts, all of these, good options. The spell does not count against your list of Sorcerer spells known. You can then choose one of your known spells that meets the same requirements to become your signature spell. Now, this essentially means that you get one more spell known, but you don't even have to choose that immediately for your ability here. That signature spell now has a range of 3 miles, also known as the Horizon, and checks made to discern where your spell was fired from are made at disadvantage. And remember, if your target can't see you and you're within range, you have advantage on the attack roll, or they have disadvantage on the saving throw, which means if you're using the line spell, you can now fire a 3-mile long lightning bolt, which is insane, and also a problem if your DM uses the bouncing mechanic. You can change the chosen spell for this ability from your list of known spells after every long rest, supposing that it's 5th level or below and meets all the other requirements. By the way, none of this limits the fact that you can upcast a spell. You can cast a lightning bolt at 9th level because it's a 3rd level spell that you know. That is a worthwhile point to note. Additionally, if you possess the focused spell metamagic, which is going to be outlined at the end, you can choose a spell that has an area of effect that is a cone, cube, cylinder, or sphere as your chosen spell for this ability, so long as you use that metamagic to turn it into a line, or further use targeted spell, turn it into an attack roll. And that allows you to choose even like Fireball, so long as you condense it down or turn it into a single attack spell, you can have that be your signature spell. And then lastly, at 18th level, Deadly Accuracy. Once per turn, when you have advantage on an attack roll for a sorcerer spell or cantrip, if you hit in the attack, you can choose to spend 5 sorcery points and deal an additional 5d10 of the spell's damage type to the target. This number was kind of figured out by saying flanking, advantage, could be a problem if you're like, you could spend any number of sorcery points between 1 and, your level, which is all of them, 18 or whatever, to deal that many d10s of damage. So you just nuke the bad guy in 1 turn and be done. But now, if it's only 5d10, it could still be really good, but you'll have to wait and see. And then we reach the end with our additional metamagic options. I have written up 4 for use with the subclass to match the 4 extra metamagic options that you can choose. So all of these options can be used if you've already used other metamagics on your spell. First, we have Altered Spell. When you cast a spell that forces other creatures to make a saving throw, you can spend 2 sorcery points to change the saving throw type to any other. So you can make Fireball an intelligence save. And all of this was inspired by a single erroneous line from something that I saw long ago, and I can't quite remember where it was, but I wrote this because why can't sorcerers just do this already? They can change the damage type, why can't they change the saving throw type? I just think it's cool. Next is Explosive Spell. When you cast a spell that has an area of effect that is a line, you can spend 2 sorcery points to expand it into a 150-foot range, 20-foot radius sphere that hits all creatures within it, still making saves like normal. So, turn your lightning bolt into a fireball, made of lightning. Focused Spell, the one that was alluded to a lot earlier. When you cast a spell that has an area of effect that is a cone, cube, cylinder, or sphere, you can spend 2 sorcery points and choose to focus it into a 100-foot long by 5-foot wide line that extends from you and hits all creatures within it. They must still make saves as normal. Turn your fireball into a lightning bolt, made of fire, because why not? And then lastly, Targeted Spell. When you cast a spell that has an area of effect that is a line, you can spend 2 sorcery points to change that spell to an attack roll against a single target with a range of 120 feet. If the spell had an effect that would allow a creature to save for half damage, but you miss with the spell, that target still takes half damage. So, Fireball, you focus spell it into a line, Targeted Spell it into a single attack. So that's 4 sorcery points. You then throw it. They might still take half damage or might still take full damage, but you can hit a single creature now, and you can use it with your long range attacker ability for an attack roll, which means you get advantage, which means that if through deadly accuracy you can spend an extra 5 sorcery points to deal an extra 5d10 damage. That's a very costly turn. It's 9 sorcery points. But at that point you're 18th level, so why not? And that is how I homebrewed a subclass for Sorcerer, and have sort of been throwing in sporadic ideas for other classes throughout. A good point of note is to look to the other classes, see what numbers they see what abilities they give, and then sort of try to focus that in around yours. Look at the levels, look at the criteria, look at what makes that class unique, and try to figure out what niche you can carve within it. There are great ideas still coming out nowadays from Wizards. In Tasha's, there was the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer and Clockwork Sorcerer, but actually for other classes you have like Order and Peace Domain Clerics, which are completely new domains. There is the Chronergy Wizards in Wildmount and Graviturgy. There's really freaking weird patrons coming out for Warlocks like Genies. All of these stem into new ideas. You could make subclasses based on your favorite video games, based on your favorite shows or movies. And hopefully by following sort of this rough guide of, just sort of throwing what you want on paper, writing it all out, and then figuring out what numbers make sense, what abilities make sense for what levels, following along with, okay, it needs to be really restrained when you first start, and then you can start opening up, and by the time you reach 18th level, 20th level, it doesn't matter. Barbarians are getting +4s to 2 scores. Gods are being called down. Paladins are becoming divine avatars. You can do whatever you want. So, go wild. Make a subclass that makes your druid half animal forever. Why not? It's just how to homebrew subclasses. Have a good day. Alright, so quick addendum. I realized that I forgot to tease what next week's episode is going to be. It's looking like the How to Homebrew Classes has been delayed, and as such next week there's going to be a quick little episode on how to homebrew magic items. Also, now I should probably let you know, the downloads for the PDFs of all of my work in these episodes is available in the descriptions. That is retroactively available for the spells, the feats, and it is obviously in this one and in all future episodes. I believe that's all that I had to say. So again, thank you very much for watching. Have a good day.